I'll admit, growing up, I was never really the biggest fan of reading. Whenever we had to do like assigned reading in school, I did not enjoy it. I didn't really read for fun very often. As an adult, I've decided I want to get into books more and I want to be a book girly because I think it's fun to read now and you get so much knowledge and reading all these stories that usually I would just read fan fiction on my phone. But I've realized I'm missing out on so many stories that are in books that I haven't read, and there are so many books that I see on BookTok that I want to read, which is why I challenged myself this year to read 12 books in 12 months. So one book for every month in the year of 2025. So I'm going to go through each month for each book that I read, and I'm also going to be reading my reviews for each one, trying to avoid spoilers in case you want to read it yourself. So without further ado, let's get into the 12 books that I read in 2025, even though I technically read more, but who cares? So the first book that I read was in January, and it was this book, Before the Coffee Gets Cold. So I didn't know I was going to be doing this video when I started reading this book. I think I just thought, oh, it's a new year, let me start reading a book. So I didn't document the progress of me reading this as well as I did later on, but I will insert obviously photos and things and possible timestamps of me reading this book. Again, I am not the biggest reader, so even a book that only had 272 pages took me forever, but I like to think that I got a bit quicker at reading as this challenge progressed. But here was my review for Before the Coffee Gets Cold. So this book is by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, and I rated this book 4 stars out of 5 on Goodreads. I'm someone that likes to rate using half stars, but Goodreads makes you do it 1 through 5, like full stars only, no half stars. So I rated this book a 4, and my review was, I thought it was a very heartwarming series of 4 stories that all take place in a quaint Japanese cafe that involve themes of love, sickness, death, and acceptance. I thought the element of time travel was really interesting and so descriptive that I was able to visualize the situation and characters very well. I especially enjoyed the last 2 stories, The Sisters and Mother and Child. Super sweet and emotional. I enjoyed this. Plus, it's a relatively quick read. I'm a slow reader though, haha. That was the first book that I read, and all of my stuff is on Goodreads. If you guys want to follow me, this is my profile, and you can check out my reviews too. The next book that I read in February was A Court of Thorns and Roses, also known as ACOTAR on BookTok. This is a very popular series, and at first I was like, I don't know if I really want to read it because I knew there was like some conflict if people liked it or if they didn't. Then I was like, you know what, I'll listen to the audiobook, a few chapters of that, and then I don't know, I ended up reading all of it. And I don't actually own this book, but I was like reading it at Barnes & Noble. I didn't purchase it, and I would like listen to the audiobook and stuff. So I don't have the book here, but I ended up buying some of the books from the later series, spoiler alert, but I just don't have this first one, which I should probably buy it so then I can own all the copies, but alas, I don't have any visual to show. Here's a PNG image of it. I'm sure you know this book. If you're watching this video, you're probably familiar with books, so you're probably familiar with this series. But that being said, here was my review. So I also rated this book 4 out of 5 stars. I think my review has a bit of spoilers in it, so I'm going to try and read around those. For an enemies to lovers story, I kind of wish it was more of a slow burn, because to me it felt like they moved very fast after the fire night scene, and I won't go into detail. Slow burns make enemies to lovers tropes infinitely more satisfying if they have all these interactions together where they're fighting and hate each other and then slowly grow feelings like who hurt you, like bro, I eat it up. So then at the end, once they finally kiss or fuck or something, it feels like, oh my gosh, it has all led to this moment. I guess I just wanted to see them fight more first before she became so damn smitten with him, like his little pet human. But I suppose it would be hard to do that. Blah blah blah, don't want to spoil anything. Farrah was so fierce hunting and killing that wolf in the beginning chapters, but she became submissive so easily. Also, I would have liked to see more jealousy with Tamlin and Rhysand. Then Tamlin would be more jealous of their closeness, and if they were still slow burn enemies to lovers, then Farrah could be like, why are you jealous? Aren't I just your human captive? This is hard to read without giving spoilers. Regardless, I kind of loved Rhysand. I didn't know anything about this book going into it, so I like him way better than boring Tamlin. Rhys-Anne has the whole dark energy and cheeky smirkness that I like better than Tamlin. Speaking of Miss Diva Queen Amarantha, I was kind of hoping she'd have a redemption arc. Is this spoilers? Oh my gosh. I feel like these are all spoilers, okay. Also kind of nitpicky, but I'm on a roll. I noticed an error in this book. It said Amarantha had red hair, but later she said she has dark black hair, and that really threw me off because I remember reading that she had red hair, which stood out to me, and I liked it. I liked that it was red and not stereotypical black, so I'm like, what is the truth? Is it red? Is it black? Who knows? Anyway, I suppose I liked it. Y'all girlies on TikTok are obsessed with it, so I figured I'd give it a read. I tend to prefer homosexual love stories, but this was fine for me. I already bought Acomath because Rhys-Anne is on the cover. Alright, so that review was pretty spoilery, so I had to cut around a lot of that. But if you read the book and you want to read my full review, you can check it out on Goodreads. Moving on to March. So I also do not own any copies of this series because instead of reading one book, I read like a whole manga series because I didn't want to just read one volume because that wasn't the whole story. So this one was a bit ambitious of me. I had went on Reddit and was like looking up what's the best manga. People were saying Goodnight Pun Pun, also known as Oyasumi Pun Pun. And so I was like, okay, I like the weird little guy on the cover. He looks like this. So I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. What's it about? Girl, it is not about a cute little dude like just fucking around. It is very intense and dark and has very mature themes, and I don't know if I was the biggest fan of it. Again, I don't own it. I was just reading it from what I had online available to me on like manga scans and things like that, but I did read it all. So here was my review. So this one, I actually probably rated it the lowest out of every book that I read for this challenge. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. So let's get into it. Reviewing this now that I've finished all 13 volumes, but I wasn't sure what to expect from Oyasumi Pun Pun. I had seen the little guy in the manga cover at the Kinokuniya bookstore before, and I thought he was a funny looking dude, but I didn't purchase the manga at the time. Later when I was bored one Friday night, March 21st to be exact. Okay, so I didn't even start reading this at the beginning of March. I searched for what the best mangas were. Okay, so I'm literally repeating what I said in my review. And a Reddit thread came up. The first recommendation was Oyasumi Pun Pun. It was then and there I decided I would read it. So Oyasumi Pun Pun, or Goodnight Pun Pun, started out as a bit silly and odd, but very quickly took a mature, dark, and sexual turn. The protagonist of the story, Onodera Pun Pun, is depicted as a weird little bird creature, but he's still just regarded as a normal student by his peers, dealing with family issues, developing a crush, and learning about sex and his urges. The story also follows some aspects of his other family members' lives, like his suicidal uncle, an emotionally and physically abusive set of parents, mostly his mother, as well as a side plot involving a cult leader called Pegasus that I quite frankly didn't care for. I will say, as I was reading through the volumes, I noticed there were a few, in parentheses a lot, of things that felt inappropriate and close-minded to me from the mangaka, the author, that I'm not a fan of. Yeah, I don't know if I want to get into that. A bunch of mature things and things I didn't quite like. I feel like a lot of older mangas are a bit stereotypy and weird with their characters, so I didn't like that. This manga was serialized in 2007 to 2012, so it felt dated and old-fashioned to me. I'm kind of skimming my review here. The more I kept reading the story, the less I started to like all the characters, with the exception of Sachi. She was the only character that I liked. In the whole 147 chapter story, she was like the only one I liked. I really disliked Pun Pun's gross deadbeat cheating uncle. And the always depressed crying Pun Pun. I literally started to hate the main character, let that sink in. I had to really push myself to finish these volumes, but I suppose to sum up Oyasumi Pun Pun, it's a mature, coming of age, slice of life story following various characters, though centric around Pun Pun, and details very dark themes through a vaguely humorous lens. I didn't find it very funny, I'm sorry. As the main character is drawn as a small anthropomorphic bird thing surrounded by normal humans, though his appearance does seem to transform with his mood shifts during integral parts of the story. At one point he turns into a pyramid, and then he has multiple eyes and all these things as he goes about his regular traumatizing and depressing life. I'm sure people would call this type of manga deep and symbolic, but on the surface it was not really my taste, but people recommended it, so I took the chance. You really can't just blindly listen to the opinions of others online though, because everyone's tastes are so different. I've learned this the hard way. I feel like I'm never agreeing with the majority opinion of anything. Like when it comes to films that are like recently coming out, I feel like I don't like them when everyone's like, it was the best thing I've ever seen, and I'm like, really? I don't know, I've just realized my tastes are a bit different than, like, not to be like,
oh my gosh, I'm just like so different than everyone.
I don't know, I just think my tastes don't really align with the general consensus most of the time, but okay. Oh well, at least I finished it before April. Maybe I'll have liked it more if it was more silly and fun and less dark and sexual and written for the male gaze. Good vibrations! That's a reference in the book if you read it. But I guess I read it from March 21st to March 30th, so I wasn't like starting it immediately once the month started and then ending. Like, I was really procrastinating a bit. But yeah, that was what I read in March. Moving on to April, we're coming back to the ACOTAR series. This is A Court of Mist and Fury that I referenced in the previous review for the first book that I had purchased this one because Rhysand is on the cover. I definitely enjoyed this book better than the first one, but I think you're supposed to. Let's get into my review. So, this is the first book that I rated 5 stars out of 5. Alright. OMG, I did it! I finished! I guess it took me a while to read this one. I definitely like this one better than the former ACOTAR. I enjoyed seeing more of Rhysand here since I prefer his character type, a dark, cunning, sarcastic man, to Tamlin, as well as Feyre talking back to Tamlin and standing up for herself more. She had gotten so dull and submissive before, so I like when she rebels and acts on her own, which she did a lot more in this. Now let's break it down a bit. A lot of part 1 of this book was just Feyre going back and forth between the courts. Is this spoilers, guys? Oh gosh. She's depressed for a majority of the book, which kind of brought the energy down. I'm gonna skim this one too. In part 2, things got a lot spicier and interesting. I really liked that Rhysand's second and third in command are both women. Slay, Mor, and Amren. Okay, ladies, now kiss. I think Amren is a cool character. It would be interesting to learn more about her history in a short story or something. I also liked the Night Court family, Rhys, Cassie, and Azriel. I was literally searching up ACOMAF fan art of them and Feyre on Pinterest. I know it's been teased that ACOTAR might get a Hulu series, but that fell out, and I really wish they would do an animated series. Oh my gosh, I could like preach this to the hills. If they ever want to do ACOTAR as a series, they need to animate it. I don't want to see human beings doing this. I don't want to see fucking Margot Robbie as Feyre, please, and Timothée Chalamet as Rhysand or something. Like, please, I don't want the same actors to be in everything. Like, if we're doing ACOTAR, it either needs to be a whole cast of actors I've never seen in my life, or it needs to be animated like an anime or something, because it's really hard to execute a fantasy, especially one of this level, right, because there's so much SFX and like weird creatures and weird things that I think would look silly if they did it with humans and like prosthetics. They need to animate it if they're ever gonna make ACOTAR series. Period. Anyway, it's part of my review, but I kind of went on a tangent. I love a strong female character. I'd like to see Feyre become even more cutthroat and maybe dom Rhys in power. Love that. Part 3 of this book was also very page-turning, more so than the other two. Lots of interesting battles. Don't want to get into specifics, blah blah blah. Maybe in the next book, Tamlin will die? Did I say that? Or go away or something and Lucien can join Feyre's crew? Who knows? I'm skipping over a lot of this. Anyway, I don't fully understand all the Durian stuff and the cauldron. I still don't really understand that stuff. Skimming. I enjoyed this one more than ACOTAR. It wasn't like a perfect book, but I still gave it 5 stars because I did enjoy it. It took me forever to finish though. I'm so bad at reading quickly, but yay! 4 books down, 8 to go. So this one I actually did start reading on March 1st, but then I read Oyasumi Pun Pun, I think, because I was like, I'm not gonna finish ACOMAF before March ends, so I had to pivot to a different series, which is why I started that one later. And then I read this one until April 26th, so it like took me longer to finish this book, but I finished it in April, so it was my April book. See what I mean? Anyway, that was my review. And then the book that I read in May was Scythe. This is a book that I definitely have seen on BookTok as well, so I was intrigued to read it, stepping away from ACOTAR a bit because I didn't want to just read ACOTAR book after book after book. I wanted to like mix up the books I was reading, so I read Scythe, and this is also a series. I think there's 3, maybe 4 books. I forgot to say the author, but we know Sarah J. Maas is the author of the ACOTAR series. The author of the Scythe book is Neil Shusterman, and let's get into my review. I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. This book is set in a post-mortality world where disease and death no longer exist, and the only way a human can die is through being killed/gleaned by an arbiter of death called a scythe. The story follows the split perspectives of 2 high schoolers, Citra and Rowan, as they've been chosen to apprentice for a scythe who goes by Faraday to possibly become one themselves. themselves. I think the concept is pretty interesting. It takes place on Earth, but the different races like Caucasian, African, Asian, etc. from the pre-mortality world have merged into split cultural indexes, and everyone has different percentages, which is kind of cool. So you would be like 20% Caucasian, 30% African. It was like a weird blended mix. I thought that was kind of cool. Also, they mentioned not counting years anymore, ending on like 2042, and so now they go by different years of the blank indicators, so I thought that was also kind of fun. Like Year of the Pigeon or whatever. I could totally see this book as a TV series. I do think it would be more interesting if we got the POV of a scythe instead of these two kids, but I guess since it's our intro into the world, we have to learn about all the rules and logistics alongside the two main characters. Makes sense. The story definitely picks up in the middle. There's conspiracy and murder and new scythes that are introduced to the scythedom. It's all very interesting. I thought Scythe Curry slayed. I don't know why I just assumed that they were a man when reading the journal entries, because there's like journal entries at the beginning of some of the chapters prior to meeting her, but she slayed. I did also like both of the main characters, Citra and Rowan. They kind of start out down a similar path, but then have their own separate journeys, which was fun. The world building was pretty cool, not too complicated once you hear it repeated over and over, such as the rules of being a scythe, the immunity rings, the fact that a scythe can't die unless by fire, plus the words they use are kind of fun, like being dead-ish. And since the world is so far in the future, concepts from the world of mortality like serial killers and torture and the flu sound odd to them, like fables of the past, which I thought that was interesting too. Spoiler alert, not gonna say that. Overall, the story was good. It kept me engaged from middle to end. The beginning was a bit slow, but I still enjoyed it. It makes me wish I could write a book. I lack the motivation, true. But anyway, this book makes 5 books completed. I wanted to rate this 3.5 stars, but I guess they don't have half ratings. Anyway, from the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Elena is how I ended it. Okay. Finished this one on May 31st, so it was a tight finish there. That's a common theme. Like, I literally was finishing these on the last day of the month because I procrastinated so damn much. Anyway, Scythe. And I think I bought Thunderhead. I think that's what it's called. That's the second book in this series, so I think I'm gonna read that, like, just in general, like in January at some point, because I have that one. So yeah. Finishing this. Scythe Lucifer. That's fun. The end. Book 2 is Thunderhead. I finished Scythe on May 31st, 9:14 a.m. The next book I read for June was War Bunny. So I've actually seen this cover, this book cover, on Goodreads. That's how I found it, because I was just scrolling through the books like, what do I want to read? And I always just had this sitting there in my want to read. I've never heard anyone talk about it. Couldn't really find much about it online. I was just like, oh my gosh, it's about a bunny. How cute. And I think I tried to enter like a Goodreads giveaway to win this. Didn't win. So then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buy it and we're gonna finally read it. So this is the book that I read for June. And I rated War Bunny 4 out of 5 stars. It's my common rating for most of these. The book is by Christopher St. John. Set in a post-apocalyptic world where the humans, aka the dead gods, are now extinct, our story follows the life of Anastasia, a quirky brown rabbit who's cast out of her warren. Through her unique habits and generosity, she befriends unlikely animals along the way and slowly grows her own warren under a new ideology where she no longer wishes to be glorified, eaten, by the blessed ones, predators. She starts to fight back using weapons she's acquired from her shifty water rat companion, Bric-a-Brac. I liked him. And her warren grows, not just with rabbits, but with squirrels, rats, mice, etc. This book was a bit confusing at first. It definitely took me a minute to understand the lingo and how they spoke about their gods and their different labels. I also had a hard time remembering what the rabbits' fur colors looked like, but overall it was giving Warrior Cats, which is a book series I loved as a kid, so this was cute, but with bunnies instead of cats. My fave characters were Anastasia, Death Rage, who was a mouse, Dingus and Bric-a-Brac, but I kind of liked all of them. Team Sans galore. I thought it was fierce when they killed the blessed ones. Anastasia was so cool. This is also a book series, so maybe I'll read the others someday. Overall, it was an interesting little bunny book about changing the circle of life. Bunnies revolt! And I also finished this June 30th, so the last day of the month. I remember I was reading this at the beach. It's gonna happen. I'm determined to finish this today. We're on page 339 out of 350. I'm on the last page. Whatever the morrow might bring, today was a very good day. Yay, thank you so much for reading War Bunny. The end. The adventure continues in Summer Day, Book 2 of the War Bunny Chronicles, which I probably won't read, at least not right now, but interesting. Oh, I didn't even realize. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this. Let me grab the camera. We have all the characters here. Like, I was getting so confused when I was first reading this about who was what and like what they looked like. So I mean, I pictured what Anastasia looked like because she was like the main one, but some of the other people kind of just went over my head. Coyotes, wolves, raccoons, foxes, the weasel. Mouse says, I love Death Rage. She was one of my faves. Dingus was fun too. Yeah, here are the books, I guess. Cute. It was giving very much like Warrior Cats vibes, but with bunnies. Fun! I finished! What time is it? 7:38 on June 30th, so cutting it a little close, but we did it. I thought it was fun. I love a book about animals that talk. But yeah, it was basically like about a bunny who's a prey fighting back against the predators. Very cool, very slay. Girl boss. Now for July, we're going to be jumping back into ACOTAR again. But this one is the third book, A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. I started reading this at the beach as well. This took me forever to read. I think I was going to end up reading another book, like how I did with the manga for the A Court of Mist and Fury, because I wasn't going to finish this in time. I was like, oh no, I need to find another quick book to read. But, yeah. Here is my review for A Court of Wings and Ruin. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I did mark that there are spoilers in my review though, but I'll try and skip around as much as I can. I've said it once, I'll say it again, this story would eat as an anime or manga. Literally, what did I just say? It gets hard for me to visualize fight scenes in books, and with a big battle, I know it would look so cool illustrated, but I enjoyed this story. It was quite a hefty book for me, so it nearly took 2 months. Yeah, I think I had to start reading it in 1 month and then finish it, and then it became the book that I read for that month. Anyway, can't read that part. This is all spoilers if you've never read it. Nesta and Cassian was intriguing and cute. I love a stern woman. I feel like if I was a teenager, I'd be looking at fics about them on AO3. Honestly, I'll probably still do that. Why would I need to be a teenager for that? Like, I could still do that. I liked most of the characters in this, but it does get a bit annoying when everyone has plot armor. No, literally, can someone die that isn't the villain? And can they stay dead? Literally no one in these books ever dies. Can't read that. Can't read that. I started off mostly reading the physical version of this book, but near the end I really leaned into the audiobook chapters on Spotify. It's more fun to walk outside while reading fantasy stories. It helps me feel more immersed. I feel bad for Lucian. When they were introducing all the High Lords, it was getting a bit hard for me to accurately visualize them, which is why I think an animated version of this would eat. But their descriptions were very much giving magical OP anime character vibes. Jumping around here, but I also like the little moments when Feyre gets visions of ideas for painting. I think it's cute to see a fun creative side that I wish we could see the painting somewhere, like I guess on Pinterest or something, is what I was meaning. The Miriam and Draken plot was getting a bit confusing for me. I still don't really know what they are, but I guess we'll find out in the next book. Gotta read them all at some point. I'm glad I finished this one. It was nice. Kind of a similar review to the previous ones. Also, it was a longer review, but there's so many spoilers. So if you've never read this series, I want to give you guys the chance. I don't want to spoil everything. So if you have read it though, you can check out my review on Goodreads. All finished. Finished at like 8:25 a.m. Yippee! For my 8th book, we are once again in the world of ACOTAR. This one is way shorter, so it took me a lot faster to read this one, A Court of Frost and Starlight. Let's get into my review. Alright, I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't my favorite. We'll get into it, but it was still okay. Like, it was a book, you know? Anyway, Merry Chris, Sarah J. Maas. This one was a much shorter book than the previous one. The vibe was giving Christmas episode in an anime. If you've watched a lot of anime, there's always like a random Christmas special, like an OVA or something, and so that's what I was referencing, where we just divert from the plot entirely and the main character is out and about buying gifts for the other characters. Very much Hallmark Christmas special, but for the ACOTAR series. I know this is technically book 3.5, so it's not a full book, but it did feel like Sarah J Maas was just trying to get another book published and rushed to get this one out. It didn't feel necessary, but I also didn't mind reading it. Sometimes it's nice to have extra little one-offs like this. It felt like I was reading a canon divergent fanfic. True. Happy solstice. Me and Feyre actually share a birthday, December 21st, for the win. Yeah, me and Feyre are like low-key twins. Maybe I should play her in the TV series though. Just kidding. Sorry, my legs are falling asleep. I'm like moving around. Anyway, that was my review of this one. Not my favorite, but wasn't like horrible or anything. I'm about to finish this book. I legit have one chapter left, and I could have read it yesterday because I was speed reading all the chapters, but I decided to wait until today and read it right now, and it's pretty short, so let's read it. Alright, I think I finished. It's always dumb how authors decide to wrap up books. It's always so and we stared off into the sunset and wiped away our tears. That's kind of how this one ended. There are a few extra pages at the back, but it's just acknowledgements. And then there's a little, I guess, a little bit of the next book. But then there's this. There's something called Novice at the end that's a few pages. And I think it's more of the story, but I'm I don't know, is it spoilers? Do I read it? Technically, the book ends here. And then that's the next book. So yeah, this one was only 229 pages. But we did it! We finished! Yay! Moving on to the next book that I read, The Housemaid. This is a topic in the public right now because the movie is out in theaters and I did watch it. And I will say the book is better. Uh-oh. So this book was also a very quick read for me. I literally just walked to Barnes & Noble and was reading the one they had at Barnes & Noble, and then I ended up buying it after I already finished it. So I read the whole thing at Barnes & Noble for free. That's a hack. You don't even need to buy books. You can just go to Barnes & Noble and read them there and then not buy them. But I did end up buying it because, why not? So here is my review for The Housemaid. Wow, that book was such an easy read. That was the quickest I've read a book in a while. 6 days. I know to some people 6 days is a long time and they can probably finish a whole book in a day, but I'm just now becoming a book girly, okay? So I think that's pretty good time, right? I would say so. I don't want to add any spoilers in this review, thank God, because I definitely think you need to go into this book knowing very little about it. I think I saw the trailer for the movie that's coming out for this book, and that was it, but that was after I'd already started reading the first few chapters. But man, this was a page turner. I literally purchased this book but spent most of the time reading a copy of it inside Barnes & Noble. I enjoyed it though. It doesn't go in the direction that you'd expect, that's all I'll say. No spoilers, but I definitely wasn't picturing Sydney Sweeney as Millie. No, I was not. Nor was I picturing Amanda Seyfried as Nina. I do like Amanda Seyfried, but she is not the way Nina is described in this, but whatever. I'll probably still go see the movie, which I did. I know Frida McFadden has a bunch of books, so I'll be curious to check out The Housemaid's Secret. I think that's book 2, Women Slay. I don't know if I'll read that second book or not. I don't know, I haven't decided yet. That was my review of that. Let me know if you guys saw the movie, what you thought of it. I don't know. I get so annoyed that we keep using the same actors, as I was saying earlier, so definitely wasn't a good choice to cast Sydney Sweeney. She has literally no emotion. She doesn't even like acting, it seems like. She's so dull. She was not Miss Millie in this book, I'll say. Anyway. It's actually September 26th, Friday, as I'm filming this. I'm on my way to go read it, so I'm out of breath. I was jogging. I'm gonna go read it inside Barnes & Noble. There was only one copy the last time I was there though, so I'm hoping somebody didn't buy it so I can read it. But yeah, we're on our way to go finish The Housemaid. Moving on to October, I was really motivated to read in this month. I actually ended up reading 2 books because I also read Bunnicula, even though it's a kid's book and it's only 98 pages. And I didn't own a copy of it, I was just reading the copy that was in Barnes & Noble. But that's beside the point. The book that I read for this month was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig? I don't know, this one was also very recommended on BookTok, which is why I wanted to get it, and I purchased it before I read it, and the cashier was saying, oh, this is such a good book, you're gonna love it. So I was like, okay, queen. She seemed like a book girly, so I was like, okay, I trust her. For my review, I actually rated this 3 out of 5, so it was like okay. I wasn't like obsessed with it or anything, but here's my review. A nice, charming little story that helps you realize that even through the hard times and moments when you feel like you can't continue on anymore, there's always a reason to keep living. Your life can have so many different possibilities and outcomes. It's how you choose to live it. Though I'm a bit younger, 25, when I read this, Nora's Seed was very relatable. I know there are so many ways I can live my life, and I have so many goals and ambitions too, though you can sometimes feel stuck in living the same 9 to 5. I want to try and do many things that bring me joy and live in my own way by my own means. I really like this quote from the end. I wrote it down in my notes app so I wouldn't forget, but I'll also paste it here. Let's occasionally look up from the spot in which we are, because wherever we happen to be standing, the sky above goes on forever. I thought that was cute. Okay, anyway, I finished this on October 30th, so one day before the end of the month. I mean, it's got a good message. I liked it. I just wasn't like, oh my god, 5 stars about it, you know? Because, like, the message I get, you know? I know it's hard to actually, like, live that way, but I get it, you know? You know what I mean? Anyway, I still liked it though. It's cute. It's like a good motivational boost for the mental health. So that was what I read in October. Moving on to November, I read Kafka on the Shore. So this was a month where I was traveling for like 2 weeks, so it was hard for me to get time in to read, so I read a lot of this in the airport and on an airplane. But I actually started reading this book in college back in like 2021 or 2022. I know, crazy. And I never finished it. So I was like, oh my god, let's fucking finish this book. Because it's not even that long. I mean, it felt long. I guess there's just a lot of words on each page, but it is 467 pages. I mean, there's a lot of words on there. I don't know. It's by Haruki Murakami. I live for him though. He has such a fun whimsy in his writing. So I'm like low-key want to read some more books from him after reading that one. So let's get into my review. Alright, so I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars. Started reading this back when I was a senior in college. Bruh, I'm just repeating and forgot about it. Picking it up again in November 2025, and I remembered how intrigued I was by an incident in the woods with the classroom of students passing out and the old man who can speak to cats. That's not so much of a spoiler, it happens really early on, but I remember I was like, I read that and I was like, oh, that's cool. This book has a lot of good quotes and moments that don't seem to make sense. It doesn't follow many rules and anything goes in a way. There are a few different character plots that all end up converging toward the end. It was a pretty interesting read. Lots of adolescent horniness and sex. Also, I hadn't heard of Johnny Walker before, and it was like divine intervention that when I got to that part of the story with the cat head souls for the flute, I don't know if it was a spoiler, I arrived in Edinburgh, Scotland, and immediately saw a Johnny Walker billboard. This is true! It was so crazy. There's like a part in the story that mentions Johnny Walker, like I think it's a whiskey brand. There's a character referencing the figure on the logo for Johnny Walker, and I didn't know what that was, like I hadn't heard of it before, and literally as I'm walking out of the airport, there's a giant like Edinburgh sign and like a billboard that says like Johnny Walker. I was like, oh my gosh! I don't know, it was just crazy to me. Anyway, here's a photo. I feel like this kind of sums up the book/story if someone were to ask me what Haruki Murakami's Kafka on the Shore is about. Here's the quote. It's not something you can get across in words. The real response is something words can't express. If you can't get it across in words, then it's better not to even try. Even to yourself. Better not to try to explain it, even to yourself. And that's a quote from the book. I had restarted reading this November 6th, finished it November 30th, also like the last day of the month. But I'm glad I actually finished it, and it was actually pretty cute and good, and I liked it, and I want to read more of his work because I like him. Anyway, Kafka on the Shore. There he is. Anyway. finally, we have made it to December, the last book that I read for this challenge. It's a hefty one, y'all, but we're back. ACOTAR series, the biggest fucking book ever. But since it was December, I had vacation time off of work, and so I was like, okay, I can like lock in and use this time to read, which I didn't manage my time as well as I should have, so it was like the last day when I was reading this to try and finish it, and I ended up finishing it on December 31st. But yeah, I think this was my favorite one out of all of them, I gotta be honest. A Court of Silver Flames. Okay, let's get into my review. So I did like this one better than A Court of Mist and Fury, I'm saying. Okay, I also rated it 5 stars out of 5. Okay, can I just say I love how this one was Nesta-centric. I think I prefer her character to Feyre's. It's so interesting how the POV change makes you like them more. Like, I had learned to like Feyre from reading the other books, but in this one, she became annoying again since I was viewing her through Nesta. Rhys also became annoying. I became fully in with Team Nesta and Cassian for real, and I think this is probably my favorite book of the ACOTAR series. Okay, now to be a little nitpicky, oh my gosh, because something about this book, I was like getting really into like the semantics of it. When I was reading this, it felt like Sarah J. Maas overused some words and phrases a lot to the point that I noticed. For example, the phrase of a character feeling heaviness in their heart. I feel like that was used so many damn times. As a reaction to someone's trauma was used a lot. Same with her use of the word sluiced/sluicing. I don't even know how you pronounce it.
Sluiced.
I didn't even know it was a word before reading this series, but it was repeated a lot. It really is, girl. Also, eyes lined with silver. Okay, we get it, everyone is crying, just say that. But enough with the semantics, I had a few story-related comments as well. Can't read that. Ugh, these are all spoilers. There were actually 2 occasions in this story where my eyes watered, and I may have shed a tear or 2 while reading. That's also a reason why this became my favorite book and got 5 stars, because if a book can move me emotionally, then that's a 5-star book. I love it when a book makes me feel emotion. I dog-eared those pages, but they were near the end, no spoilers. I kind of just finished this book by the skin of my teeth on December 31st at 9:37 a.m. Okay guys, it's officially crunch time. It's Wednesday, December 31. It's literally my last day to finish this book, and then I will have read 1 book in every month of 2025. So it is 6:30 a.m. and I'm going to try and read as much as I can of this so I can finish it today. But like, I'm pretty close. I think I can do it. So we're gonna lock in. Do you think I can do it, Nanny? Okay. I did it! I finished! Wow. Dope. And with that, we have officially finished A Court of Silver Flames. It's very long. It was 757 pages. And we finished at 9:38 on December 31st. Very fitting of me to wait until the last minute to finish. But we did it! Yay! Now I've officially read 12 books in 12 months. I've actually read a little bit more, but I've officially read 1 book each month of this year, so yay! Now with this book read, I will successfully read 1 book in every month of 2025! 12 books in 12 months, technically 13, as someone who doesn't read, yippee! So yeah, I read it December 2nd to the 31st. So yeah, this was my favorite! I love Nesta and Cassian, that's all I'll say. If you want to read the series, you should read it. It's pretty good, I think. I don't know, it makes me curious to read some of her other work, like the House of Glass? What is that one called? I don't know. Throne of Glass? I can't remember. But yeah, this was the last book, and then I've successfully read 12 books in 12 months. 12 books in 12 months. I'm such a good reader. I was also reading a little bit of this manga series called The Summer Hikaru Died, but I didn't finish the whole series because it's still coming out, so I'm not going to include this in this. But I was going to include it, but I'm not. I did technically read a bit more than what I'm saying in this video. The point of this video was I did read 1 book for each month of the year. I'm just an overachiever, I think. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to become book friends, hit me up because I have no friends. But also, if you have book recommendations too, I would really appreciate that because I want to read all the books that the girlies love. I literally have so many books as want to read in my Goodreads, but it's like I don't even know where to start. So I think I'm going to read Thunderhead, but if you guys have any recommendations, leave them below. I want to become knowledgeable and read and like big brain, like less phone, more book, you know. Can't scroll a book. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did, or give it a like even if you didn't like it. Who cares? Okay, thanks for watching. Bye guys. Read more books. Eat more chicken. Okay.